You are not celebrating God's birthday. You are celebrating a pagan holiday. The Bible talks about Christmas. The Bible talks about Christmas as describing a holiday that the heathens celebrate. Satan and Santa Claus, they have just disguised it. If you spell the word Santa Claus and you spell the word Satan, it's the same letters, just reworded different letters in different orders. Let's see what the Bible say about Christmas.
Chapter 10. Hear ye the word which the Lord speaketh unto you, O house of Israel. Thus saith the Lord, Learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. For the customs of the people are vain, for one cutteth a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workman, with the axe. They deck it with silver and with gold. They fasten it with nails and with hammers, that it move not. They are upright as the palm tree, but speak not. They must needs be born, because they cannot go. Be not afraid of them, for they cannot do evil, neither also is it in them to do good. Forasmuch as there is none like unto thee, O Lord, thou art great, and thy name is great in might. Who would not fear thee, O King of nations? For to thee doth it appertain. Forasmuch as among all the wise men of the nations, and in all their kingdoms, there is none like unto thee. But they are altogether brutish and foolish. The stock is a doctrine of vanities. Silver spread into plates is brought from...
I'm going to stop it there. I'm going to stop it there. But let's get more into this holiday, Christmas, which is just paganism, and other deities and other gods celebrate on the 25th of December. And I'm going to place a picture, and I want you to look at it, absorb it, embrace it, take it in, acknowledge it. And then we're going to get into more detail about this holiday. And this is not going to be a long video. I want you to wake up. Wake up. Let's get into this video. Here we go.
But I'ma only say the truth. He said the world hated me, so just know it hated you. My friends switched on me and my family did too. They say it's only at the top, but I want kingdom views. So-called black girl, I'm a real Jew. Mindset on righteous, that's the real move. My people wear fringes, Pharisees do too. Don't be shocked when they flake head and shoulders for them dudes. You go around telling everyone you a blessing, but you really just a whip covered up in sheep dressing. All that hurt didn't turn me hard, gave me a broken and contrite heart. Psalm 51 is how my day start, and I'll never trade my pain cause it got me this far. I give it all to y'all cause the battle is his. You better not play with the most high kids. I fell a couple times, but I'll never stay down, cause I'll never let the devil think he take my crown. I'll never be the one to entertain a circus clown, cause a clown ain't funny if he ain't got a crowd. All this to say that my faith is on flex, and I'ma keep my peace, cause that's the real bad. Can't do nothing if you're mad, then you're mad. That's too bad.
The winter season, around December 25th, the people celebrated the winter solstice. And so the winter solstice would come about somewhere from December 21st all the way to around January 6th or so. And so the people of the north would celebrate different holidays, have different occasions based upon the winter solstice. In the winter time, there is a period where there is no light. You are literally in darkness 24 hours of the day. And this stretches for a period of time. Now, could you imagine if you're living in Alaska, or living in Canada, or living in Norway, and you don't have central heating, and the cold is outside, it's darkness around you, people are dying from disease, it's a terrible time, and every family would probably lose somebody, or they would know of somebody dying from the cold and disease during that season. This is the winter solstice. And so when the sun starts to come out, the people now are looking at the sun as a life-giving force. And so during that time, a number of ceremonies were held in northern countries. In the far north was the Feast of the 12 Nights, which stretched from December 25th to January 6th. Also in ancient Greece, there was the Bacchanalia, which was held for their god Bacchus, the god of wine and sport and play. The Romans had the Saturnalia for their god Saturn, their main sun god Saturn. And so you find during these times that the people held ceremonies in the north. They would burn bonfires. The light was important, the fire, because the fire represents the light, the life-giving force for those who worship nature. Also in the north, they recognized that there was one tree that despite the cold would still remain alive, the evergreen tree, the fir tree. And so in some cases they would take this fir tree, believing that there was powers of life within the tree, and they would put it in their homes, set it there and put a light on the top of it, or burn them in the front, or they would make mistletoes and put them over their doorways, a type of what we would call ta'weez or tamima. It is an amulet. And they would hang the amulet over their doors, hang the amulets in their home, hoping that this fir tree, that this so-called life-giving force would protect them from the danger of the winter. And so their ceremonies developed around this. And this went on for hundreds of years. We also find in the ancient northern countries, and the Druids of the north, they carried out special ceremonies surrounding the mistletoe and surrounding the fir tree and the beliefs, and they would meet within circular areas. And they had a secretive cult that spread throughout the far northern countries. One of the interesting individuals, and you can look this up if you can find it in the dictionaries or encyclopedias, is a man called Mithras or Mithras. This is a very mysterious character. And when you look at history, you find that this individual called Mithras was born on December 25th. His day of the week was the 7th day of the week, that we still call Sunday. He was supposed to be the son of the sun god himself, and they had a special sacrament made up of bread and wine, and they would make this drink during this time. And supposedly he died for the sins of the people.
I just want to point out, Sunday is not the day you're supposed to worship God. What you know as church is supposed to be celebrated on Saturday, which is the Sabbath, but it was changed. This is the question we want to know. Let's get into it.
When did the Christian church switch the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday? No specific names or dates are associated with the church's shift from observing the holy day on Saturday to observing it on Sunday. At first, especially when many Christians were converted Jews, their holy day was Saturday. However, because the resurrection and the beginning of creation had both occurred on the first day of the week, Sunday, the church soon observed that day instead. More Gentiles were becoming Christians as well, which contributed to a desire to shake off Jewish customs. By the end of the 1st century, Sunday worship was the norm. We can assume the change caused some friction, for in Colossians 2:16 Paul admonishes, "Therefore do not let anyone judge you by what you eat or drink, or with regard to a religious festival, a new moon celebration or a Sabbath day, which was taken out of content according to Leviticus 11. There are foods that are considered unclean and should be followed." People assumed what they wanted to believe out of his message, but he was not condemning the laws. It's important to note that the Sabbath was not simply moved. Christians altered the observance as well as the day. Hallmarks of the early Christian Lord's Day celebration, according to Justin Martyr, included readings from Scripture, particularly the Gospels, a sermon, communal prayer, and communion, very different from Jewish Sabbath observance. By Jewish standards, Christians don't keep the Sabbath at all, and you don't keep it properly. Christianity is a false religion and they do not teach you according to Scriptures. We have forgotten who we are as a nation. All children of Israel converting to this Christianity, which is nothing but a little bit of
Hebrew custom mixed up with paganism. Jewish people are not what you see in Israel today. They are fake Jews. It is the blacks, the Native Americans and the black Hispanics such as the Dominicans in the West Indies who are really the true children of Israel. And when I say black I mean those who are tucking into slavery, not the so-called Native Africans. It was the Hebrew Israelites who fled into Africa to flee from the Romans. It was not Africans selling or betraying other Africans. It was the Native Africans who were selling the Hebrew Israelites who was not native to that land. We are not supposed to worship the Most High God on Sunday but Saturday. Then Sunday was another work day in the Roman Empire. On March 7, 321, however, Roman Emperor Constantine I issued a civil decree making Sunday a day of rest from labor, stating, "All judges and city people and the craftsmen shall rest upon the venerable day of the sun, paying homage and honor to their sun god."
And I'm not going to make this video about the Sabbath, even though you don't celebrate it properly. If you're going to celebrate anything this time of the year, it should definitely be Hanukkah. But let's get back into the video. I'm going to give more reasons why you shouldn't celebrate Christmas and things of that nature.
It is a story everyone knows. After a rude refusal by a local innkeeper, Mary and Joseph bedded down in a barn in Bethlehem. The next day, Mary gave birth to a son, the Son of God. Those are the biblical origins of Christmas. But centuries before Jesus walked the earth, early Europeans were celebrating light and birth in the darkest days of winter. In the Norse country, this winter celebration was known as Yule. Around December 21st, the Winter Solstice, fathers and sons would drag home the biggest log they could find and set it on fire. The Yule log warmed, but it also looked ahead. Each spark was said to represent a pig or calf to be born in the spring. Also dragged inside were evergreens, the one plant that could make it through a Norse winter. Evergreens proved that life persisted in this dark time.
There's a natural attraction to that which lives through the winter when one is struggling to survive through the winter. The evergreen is that part of nature that seems impervious to the coming of winter and the diminishing of the sun. And so it's an absolutely natural symbol, one which I think we react to almost without thinking about.
For as long as the Yule log burned, about 12 days, feasting and revelry reigned supreme. In fact, this was one of the few times that meat was abundant, since cattle had just been slaughtered for the long winter.
There is a necessity to kill most of the cattle, because you can't keep them alive over the winter when there's nothing to feed them on. You keep a few alive for breeding. But there is an opportunity for a great blowout, for a great feast. Time to party.
The party raged inside in defiance of winter's deadly howl.
There is a spooky feel about the northern Yuletide festivals. You may be all right there in the hall with the blazing fires, but outside there are demons, there are spirits.
In Germany, the pagan god Odin lent his name to this midwinter holiday. Early Germans were terrified of Odin, whose nocturnal flights decided who would prosper or perish in the coming year. Later, we'd see another Christmas skyrider, Santa Claus. But for now, staying inside became the smartest choice at this frightening time of the year. A 1,000 miles away in Rome, winter was less harrowing, but the December festivals were just as elaborate. 1 week before the winter solstice, Romans began celebrating Saturnalia, a month-long orgy of food and drink. Named for the god Saturn, which meant plenty, Rome's established order was turned on its head during this wild, delirious time.
The Saturnalia celebrations were certainly times of revelry, of turning the social order upside down, of having the master pretend to be the slave and the slave pretend to be the master, sort of a time out of time in which one could celebrate a kind of disorder in the universe.
One of the holiday's important feasts was Juvenalia, which celebrated the children of Rome.
Although these early festivals are not necessarily about children particularly, though they are about fertility, children did have their particular place. The indulgence of children, of course, is very much a part of our modern Christmas, but it did have its place even in these ribald, drunken festivals that the Romans had.
Among the upper classes in Rome, solstice celebrations were significantly more sober. Many influential Romans worshipped Mithras, the god of the unconquerable sun. To this small but powerful sect, the birthday of Mithras was the holiest day of the year.
December 25th was the winter solstice in that part of the world, and it was also understood to be the birthday of the sun god, Mithras. And Mithras was said to be born from a rock. Shepherds came to worship him as he was an infant god born out in that pastoral place in the fields. And many of those stories, of course, have come into Christian tradition.
While Romans were worshiping the sun god, a new religion was taking hold throughout the empire. At first, Christians didn't celebrate the birth of Christ. His resurrection was the essential fact of the new religion. By the 4th century, however, the question of the holy birth became impossible to ignore.
There were questions within the church about how do we even imagine Jesus. Some people believe that Jesus was purely a spiritual emanation of God, and others believe that Jesus must have actually appeared on earth, and so the decision to celebrate Jesus' birth meant that Jesus was actually a human or a human form.
For Christians, the fact of his birth was settled, but the date remained a mystery. The Bible doesn't mention exactly when Christ was born, but certain facts suggest it probably was not in December.
So if you're going to sort through the runes of the scriptures, Jesus was probably born in the spring. If the shepherds are out in the fields watching their flock by night, we're not talking about one of the cold spells at the heart of winter.
If pagan Rome was already celebrating the birth of Mithras on December 25th, it seemed natural to honor the birth of the Christ child at the same time. By the 4th century, the Church made it official. December 25th was declared the feast day of the Nativity.
But of course it's a very short step from the feast day of the risen sun, S-U-N, to the feast day of the risen sun, S-O-N. So in a sense, it's a very good choice, and the symbolism is there because the feast day of the unconquered sun was about fertility, about birth. And so, obviously, is the Christian Christmas.
The Church knew it could not outlaw the pagan traditions of Christmas, so it set out to adopt them. The evergreens traditionally brought inside were soon decorated with apples, symbolizing the Garden of Eden. These apples would eventually become Christmas ornaments. And holly, a traditional midwinter decoration, was recast to represent Christ's crown of thorns.
People already had their own agenda for this season, and that agenda was not one that was really radically changed when the names got changed from non-Christian to Christian names. The church pretty much had a policy of live and let live. If people would call themselves Christians and do lip service to the birth of the Savior, then let them do anything that they wanted to do with it. But on the other hand, by assigning the nativity to that time of year, the church really gave up the opportunity to control the way that celebration took place.
The tension between piety and revelry at Christmas would reach its logical and extreme conclusion in Puritan England, when the holiday would be considered so un-Christian it was done away with altogether. By the Middle Ages, Christianity had largely replaced the old pagan religions of Europe. On December 25th, the faithful were called to Gothic cathedrals like Notre Dame and Salisbury Cathedral in England for Christ's Mass, soon to be called Christmas. But out in the streets, the holiday was still more raucous than religious.
If you went to England around Christmas time, any time before, say, 1800, you'd probably feel pretty ill at ease. You wouldn't think it was Christmas at all. What would you think it was? Maybe Mardi Gras, maybe New Year's Eve, maybe Halloween? Because Christmas in old-time England was really a carnival.
The houses of London were littered with brawling, drunken villagers and couples engaged in the most unholy activities. And each Christmas, a beggar or student was temporarily put in charge after being crowned the Lord of Misrule. The rest of the peasantry also got their once-a-year chance to grab power from the ruling classes.
They would go around to the houses of the rich, they would bang on the doors and demand entry, and once they were let in, the lord of the manor had to give them the best stuff that he had. He had to give them his best food, he had to give them his best beer, his best of everything.
And a jolly wassail, it's then you shall hear.
But if he didn't, they would threaten or actually perform a trick.
Come butler, come fill us.
One surviving Christmas song says, if you don't give us what we want, then down will come butler, bowl and all.
But if you do draw us a bowl of the small, then down shall go butler, bowl and all, bowl and all.
Some historians think that it performed the role of a safety valve. You might say that a wealthy man could make up for an entire year of small or large injustices to the poor by giving a generous Christmas handout just once in the year.
The rules of Christmas would soon change, however, as a wave of religious reform swept through England in the early 17th century. Led by Oliver Cromwell, the Puritans overthrew the king's forces in 1645 and vowed to rid England of all that was decadent. High on their list was English Christmas, and in 1652 they outlawed it altogether. Shops were ordered to stay open, churches were forced to stay closed.
The Puritans were always, I think, deeply attracted to those things that they were most opposed to. They had a fear that they might have too good of a time. I don't mean to trivialize them, but there was a deep fear that if these things were legalized, they themselves might enjoy them and their souls would be lost.
The Puritans may have said good riddance to Christmas, but the people never really stopped celebrating it. The holiday merely went underground. If Christmas pie was illegal, it began to be known as mince pie instead, which was just as delicious.
The deeper need for Christmas in the human heart, the need for celebration at a time of darkness, those needs made the battle against Christmas, gave it a few temporary wins, but it couldn't possibly secure a final victory.
In 1656, the men of Kent and Canterbury passed a resolution saying that if they could not have their Christmas Day, they would have the king back on his throne. They soon got their wish. The monarchy was restored with Charles II, and Christmas was restored with him. It seemed the English could live without a king, but not without Christmas.
It has been argued that one reason for the restoration of the monarchy is because by restoring the monarchy you also restored Christmas. You restored the proper English Christmas with its rituals, its traditions and its carousing. Christmas is brought back, if you like, by popular acclaim.
The fight against Christmas may have been lost in England, but the Puritans had high hopes for the new colonies in America. In 1620, a small group of separatists came ashore at Plymouth, Massachusetts. Even more orthodox than their English cousins, these men and women hoped to rid themselves once and for all of the Christmas scourge. In 1659, Puritans in Boston followed their English brethren in outlawing Christmas. Anyone caught exhibiting the Christmas spirit was fined 5 shillings. Like in England, however, Christmas remained impossible to contain. The 1719 Boston Almanac doesn't list a Christmas holiday, but it does recommend that in late December you not let your children and servants run too much abroad at night.
From almost the beginning in Massachusetts, there's evidence that some people practiced Christmas, and that when they did so, it was in fact an opportunity to get drunk. And one of the most interesting little sidelights on this is the finding of historical demographers that there was actually a bulge in conceptions, the conception of children, that took place during Christmas.
Not all the colonies had such trouble with Christmas. Captain John Smith, leader of the Jamestown settlement in Virginia, wrote that their first New World Christmas was kept with plenty of good oysters, wild fowl, and good bread. Jamestown settlers were also the first to drink eggnog as a Christmas drink, the nog coming from the word grog, which means any drink made with rum. After independence, however, all things English fell out of favor in America, Christmas included. In fact, on December 25, 1789, the United States Congress sat in session and continued to stay open on Christmas Day for most of the next 67 years.
At this same time, there are people who are writing in their diaries that, isn't it too bad we don't have any holidays? So after the Revolution, here is an entire nation that works hard, has forsaken many holidays, has given up many holidays because they were holidays that were mandated by the Crown, and it is time to start thinking about how to populate the calendar.
As the 19th century dawned, Christmas would be one holiday that would pull the new nation together. But it wouldn't be the carnival Christmas of Old England, nor would it be particularly religious. America would invent its very own Christmas, and in the process, reinvent it for the whole world.
Christmas is now a commercialized holiday where people spend millions and billions of dollars on nonsense. I am not going to get into slavery and what this holiday means. I did not want to take this video to Jamestown. So don't be out here just celebrating a holiday. Know what you're celebrating. And most of all, read your Bible, Deuteronomy chapter 28. Find out why we're suffering. Don't you want to know why black people have it so hard out here in the world? Why we getting killed in the street like dogs? Read Deuteronomy chapter 28. It'll let you know so much. I have a video down below in my description. Click on it. Wake up, my people. Wake up. I hope you was edified. Shalom.